Welcome to Lead on the Podcast for nonprofit leaders navigating change with intention. Brought to you by CNA. Social Impact Consulting, we explore what it really takes to lead with clarity, courage, and consistency in complex times. No binders, no buzzwords, just thoughtful conversations and practical guidance to help leaders and missions move forward. LeadOn is powered by Notebook LM and produced by CNA, Social Impact Consulting.
It is great to be here. And honestly, looking at the calendar, the timing for this conversation feels really precise.
It really does. We're sitting here in early February of 2026. And, if you're listening, you might be feeling this very specific kind of pressure in the air. It's that time when the optimism of January has kind of worn off, the resolutions are gone. And reality is, well, it's setting in.
It's a very distinct flavor of leadership stress. I think the source material described it perfectly.
Yeah.
Budget season meets mild panic.
Oh, totally. I loved the imagery they used. It said something like, it's a Tuesday morning, you open your bank balance, then you look at your grant pipeline, and you see that gap between the two, and all of a sudden your coffee tastes like consequences.
That is so visceral. And unfortunately, so accurate for a lot of leaders right now.
It really is. It captures that exact moment where the spreadsheet stops being numbers, and it just becomes this, physical pressure. A tightness in your chest.
Right. You're carrying that weight often alone.
Yeah. And that brings us right to the core of what we need to talk about today, which is financial anxiety.
It does. But we're not just talking about it as, personal stress, like losing sleep. We need to frame financial anxiety as a leadership tax.
A leadership tax. I like that framing. Can you dig into that a little? How does it function as a tax on the organization?
Well, think about your focus. Your mental bandwidth. It's a finite resource, right?
Oh, absolutely.
So when you're constantly running these background calculations, worrying about a late grant payment, trying to figure out why donor retention is sliding, stressing about keeping your staff calm, all that worry, it drains your focus.
It's a tax on your attention.
Exactly. It taxes your ability to actually lead.
Yeah.
You're in the strategy meeting, but you're not really there. You're just doing subtraction in your head.
That resonates. I mean, you can't be strategic about a 3-year plan when you're terrified about making payroll in 3 weeks.
You can't. Which brings us to the mission for this deep dive.
Okay.
The goal today is to help leaders move from that state of constant panic to what CNA calls cash flow calm.
And I think it's important to say what that doesn't mean.
Yes. The goal here is not to turn you into an accountant. It's not to make you a CFO.
Yeah.
It isn't even about perfection.
It's that steadiness.
It's about steadiness. Because when you are steady, your team is steady, and you can actually lead.
Okay, so this feels like it starts with a pretty big mindset shift for a lot of us.
It is. The biggest one is realizing that finance, it's not a back office function anymore.
Which is how so many of us were trained, right? You come up through the program side, you do the work, and then, once a month you get a report from the finance director.
Yeah, exactly. And you look at it and say, okay, looks good, or hey, why is that number red?
Yeah.
And in 2026, that is a luxury you just don't have. Finance is a leadership discipline now.
So what's changed? Why is that old way so dangerous now?
Well, look at the landscape. The Nonprofit Finance Fund, the NFF, their State of the Nonprofit Sector findings paint a really clear picture. The pressure's just stacking up.
What are the big factors they're seeing?
It's a tough combination. You have organizations with very limited cash on hand, reserves are thin. At the same time, demand for services is going up.
Mm-hmm.
You've got operating deficits becoming more common, and, inflation is still hitting costs.
Yeah.
Put all of that together, and what you get is volatility.
And volatility is the enemy of waiting for that monthly report.
It's the enemy. Volatility punishes slow visibility. If you wait for the monthly report, you are driving by looking in the rearview mirror. By the time you see the problem, the damage is done.
Okay, so we stop looking in the rearview mirror. What are we looking at instead? This brings us to the first skill you mentioned. Cash visibility.
Yes. And we have to make a really critical distinction here. Budgets are plans. Cash is oxygen.
Budgets are plans. Cash is oxygen. I feel like that should be on a Post-it note on every nonprofit leader's monitor.
It really should. I mean, a budget is a hypothesis. It's a roadmap you drew a year ago. But you can't pay payroll with a budget. You can't pay rent with a hypothesis. You need cash.
So it's not about analyzing that budget variance column.
Well, that matters for compliance, sure. But for survival, for leadership, the question is much simpler. Do we have the oxygen to get through the next 3 months?
So what questions should a leader be able to answer, like, right now without having to call their accountant?
You need to know three things immediately. First, how many months of runway do you have if all your projected revenue comes in on time? That's your sunny day number.
Okay, the best case scenario. The one we tell the board.
Right. But then you need the second number. How many months of runway do you have if it doesn't? If that big grant is late, if that government check takes 90 days instead of 30.
Mm-hmm.
And third, and this is the scary one, but it's crucial, what is your uh-oh date?
The uh-oh date. I think my stomach just clenched. Define that for us.
It's a specific date on the calendar where if nothing changes, things break. Checks start to bounce.
That feels incredibly stressful to know. Why would I want to put that date on my calendar?
Because knowing the date turns this vague, amorphous dread into a specific math problem. If you know the date is, say, November 14th, you have a timeline. You know exactly how many days you have to solve the problem.
It shifts you from just I'm worried to I have a deadline.
100%.
Yeah.
It's productive pressure. And that leads you to identify your top 3 timing risks.
Yeah.
You know, it's slow government reimbursements, a big grant decision, the summer fundraising slump.
Right. And the source material had a great line on this. Identifying these risks isn't pessimism.
Yeah.
It's adult supervision.
That's it. You're not being a downer. You're being the adult in the room making sure the mission survives.
Okay, so that's cash visibility. Now, what about looking forward? Skill number 2 is forecasting. And this, I have to say, can feel a lot like fortune telling.
It can feel that way.
Yeah.
But we need to reframe it. Forecasting isn't about predicting the future perfectly. It's decision support.
Okay, decision support. So how do we do that without a crystal ball?
You use the if-and model. It's simple, but it's so powerful. You just say, if these 3 grants come in, then we execute plan A, we hire that person.
And if they don't?
If they don't, then we execute plan B, we freeze hiring and delay the program launch.
So you're pre-deciding your actions based on specific triggers. It takes the panic out of the moment.
It removes the paralysis. And this is so critical right now because of what the data is telling us. The Fundraising Effectiveness Project shows that donor retention is, well, it's challenging.
Which means you can't just assume last year's money is going to show up again this year.
Exactly. The rinse and repeat budget is dead. Your forecasting has to be tighter. You have to ask, what if we lose 10% of our mid-level donors? What breaks?
And that connects right into the next skill, portfolio thinking. This is about looking at all our revenue streams together, isn't it?
Yes. This is about moving from being a desperate magician.
Huh. That's a painfully accurate description of fundraising sometimes, just trying to pull another rabbit out of the hat.
It is. We have to move from that to being a leader with a model. Bridgespan has this great insight. A funding strategy isn't a list of tactics. It's a business model.
So how do you analyze your model? What are the hard questions to ask?
You have to look at the quality of your money. First, is it reliable or is it volatile? Second, is it flexible or is it brittle?
Brittle money. I like that term. What does that look like?
Brittle money is highly restricted, heavy reporting. It's the grant that says you can only use it on Tuesday afternoon programs run by staff named Steve. If you bend it the wrong way, it breaks. You might have to give it back. Flexible, unrestricted money, that's what lets you pivot. It fills the gaps.
And the final question is probably the scariest one.
It is.
Yeah.
Where are you overexposed? If that one foundation changes its priorities, does your whole organization collapse? It's about stability.
Okay, so let's say we've done this work. We've got our visibility, our scenarios, but now we have to talk to people about it. The board, the staff.
Ooh.
Which brings us to skill number 4, financial storytelling.
This is such a critical step. So many leaders do all the hard math, and then they walk into the board meeting and just put a spreadsheet on the screen.
And you can just feel the energy leave the room. Everyone's eyes glaze over.
Or they start nitpicking the office supplies line. The thing is, leaders think the numbers speak for themselves. They don't.
So numbers alone don't create confidence.
No, meaning creates confidence.
Yeah.
If you just dump data on people, they fall into what we call the binary trap.
The binary trap, what's that?
It's panic or denial. They either look at a deficit and scream, we're doomed, cut everything.
Or they do the opposite. Oh, we'll figure it out. We always do.
And neither of those helps you lead. So you have to tell a story. You need a narrative.
So what's the structure of a good financial story?
The source material lays out a great 4-part template. Part 1, here's what's true, just the facts. We have 3 months of cash on hand, no spin.
Okay.
Part 2, here's what's changing. The context. Donor retention is down sector-wide, and a key government contract is delayed. This shows You see the big picture.
Right.
Part 3. Here's what we're doing about it. We are launching a new monthly giving campaign and delaying 2 non-essential hires. This shows you have a plan.
And part 4.
This is the most important one. Here's what we need from you.
Give them a job.
Yes. You transform them from a passive audience into active partners. We need you to make 2 introductions. We need you to approve this line of credit. It gives them agency.
That framework is so helpful. It moves everyone toward action. And speaking of action, let's talk about the hard stuff. Skills 5 and 6, discipline and composure.
Right. Let's start with cost discipline.
Which to many people just sounds like spend less money.
It can sound like that. But the goal for a leader isn't just spend less. It's protect mission capacity.
What's the difference there?
Well, if you just do an across-the-board cut, you might cut the very thing that generates revenue, like your development team software. Strategic cutting is about knowing what's a fixed cost versus a flexible one, and where a small cut creates a massive headache.
Oh, I've seen that. You cancel a $200 a month software, and now your development director spends 10 hours a week doing it manually.
That's a perfect example. That is a false economy. You have to know which investments actually unlock revenue, like your capacity for monthly giving. You don't cut that, you protect it.
So discipline is about being smart, not just being cheap. Okay, what about composure? The source called this the most underrated skill.
It absolutely is.
Oh.
Because the entire organization looks to you for signals. If you are frantic, the culture becomes frantic.
But that's so hard. If you're genuinely worried, how do you project calm? Are you supposed to pretend everything is fine?
No, you never lie. Your credibility is everything. The rule is simple. Tell the truth early, with a plan and with a time frame for the next update.
I like that. It's not everything's great. It's here's the challenge, here's our plan to address it, and I'll give you another update on Friday.
Precisely. You are not hiding from reality. You are leading reality. Your team can handle bad news. What they can't handle is chaos and uncertainty from the top.
Okay, this has been a masterclass. But let's make it super practical. I want the Monday morning list. What can a leader do this week?
Okay, first thing, build a simple 13-week forecast.
Simple being the keyword, not some spreadsheet masterpiece.
Definitely not. Just a basic grid. Weekly cash in, weekly cash out. Just seeing the flow on paper will be a revelation for many people.
Okay. Number 2.
Scenario building. Sketch out 3 versions of the next 6 months. Call them base, tight, and oh no.
And decide ahead of time what you'll do in each scenario.
Yes. Decide your trigger points now while you're calm. If we hit the tight scenario, we freeze travel. Pre-making those decisions is incredibly grounding.
I can see that. Okay, what else?
Rewrite your next internal update using that 4-part storytelling model. Truth, context, action, ask. Cut the jargon.
And one more. Something with donors.
Schedule 1 donor conversation this week that is not an ask. Make it a listening call.
A listening call. That feels bold when you're anxious about money.
It is, but it builds the long-term relationship. Ask them what they're seeing in the world. You'll learn a ton, and you'll stand out.
Now, you mentioned CNA has some tools for this, for people who don't want to start from scratch.
They do. There's a scenario planning worksheet to help you map those oh no moments. There's also the Revenue Reality Toolkit, which is great for pressure testing your budget assumptions.
And what about for the leader who's just feeling really isolated in all of this?
That's what the empowered coaching is for. It's for leaders who don't want to carry this financial weight all by themselves.
That support seems so critical. This work can be really lonely.
It can be. But the key takeaway here is that clarity kills anxiety. You don't have to become a spreadsheet wizard.
A spreadsheet goblin, as the source said.
Right. You just have to be willing to look at the truth, understand the story it's telling, and then lead with that story.
Clarity kills anxiety. That's a fantastic mantra to hold on to. It's much better to know what you're facing.
It really is. When you turn on the light, the monster under the bed usually turns out to be something you can actually handle.
This has been so incredibly helpful. Thank you.
My pleasure.
That's a wrap on this episode of LeadOn. If today's conversation gave you something to think about, we invite you to subscribe and share it with a fellow nonprofit leader. You can find us on Spotify and at leadonpodcast.com. Until next time, stay grounded, stay curious, and lead on.